Hi guys, today we're going to talk about powers and exponents. Okay, so let's start with something you know a lot about. If I say 10 times 10, okay, well we know, you've learned this since you were little, these two are called factors and the answer is called a product. When the factors are the same, we say that you can use an exponent. So 10 times 10 is really 10 to the power of 2. Or sometimes you might hear it expressed 10 squared. So let's get some terminology down here first. That 2, or whatever number that's written up way high and kind of small, is called the exponent. That tells you how many times to use this as a factor. The regular size number is called the base. So the base could be any number. The exponent could be any number. The base can even be a fraction or a decimal, as you'll see. Okay, so just to illustrate this, 10 times 10 with 10. Okay, I have a line that measures 10, a line segment that measures 10, whatever your units are. But if I take that line and I multiply it times 10, oh gosh, this does not look like a square. Let's pretend this is a square. Let me come up a little higher. Okay, so I have 10 length and 10 width or height, however you want to say it. Well, 10 times 10 is 100. So what I have really just done, so this is 10. This is 10 times 10. Okay, let me go on. I'll go a little further. Now, I take my square, that's 10 by 10, and I turn it into a cube that is 10 by 10 by 10. Okay, so it's 10 across here, 10 across here, so length, width, and height. So, you guys know to measure length is 10. Since we're just using that as a factor times itself, it's 10 to the first power. Okay? But if I have it used as a factor twice, it's 10 to the second power, sometimes called 10 squared. Because you can see when you square a number, you turn it into a perfect square, okay? If I have the number used as a factor 3 times, we call that cubed because it's 10 to the third power, which is 10 times 10 times 10, and it forms a perfect cube. Whatever your base is, if you cube it, it will form a perfect cube. So if you had 4 by 4 by 4, that would be 4 cubed. Okay, so we can say this is cubed. Okay, all right. So we say it. There's some important ways. It's important to learn the proper way to say things. You can say 10 to the power of 2, or you can say 10 to the second power, or you can say 10 squared. Usually, if it's not squared or cubed, you would just say the base to the power of, and then the exponent. Okay, base to the power of the exponent. So you could say 2 to the power of 3, 2 to the power of 8, or you could also say 2 to the third power, 2 to the 8th power. Okay, so speaking of 2, if I have 2 to the 5th power, what that means is my 2 is going to be a product. I'm sorry, not a product, a factor. It's going to be used as a factor 5 times. So what that means is I've got to say 2 times itself 5 times. Okay? Now, some people are going to look at that and say, oh, I know, that's 10. No, it is not 2 times 5. It is not 10. No, 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 no. That would be 2 times 5. This is not 2 times 5. This is 2 to the 5th power, which means 5 times it's used as a factor. So if we solve that, 2 times 2 is 4. times 2 times 2 is 4 times 2. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. Okay, so the terminology that we're looking for is we say it is used as a factor 5 times, which just basically means it's times itself 5 times. Okay, so let's try a little bit more. Okay, so it will also give you sometimes, it'll give you the factors and ask you to write it with an exponent. So what this means is 6 has been used as a factor 4 times, because I have 4 6's times itself 4 times. So that would be 6 to the 4th power. Or you could also say 6 to the power of 4. Okay, if I have 1.5, that's my base, even though it's a decimal. 1.5 to the 3rd power, or 1.5 cubed. What that really means is that 1.5 is used as a factor 3 times. So that's 1.5, sorry, I should write it down there, times 1.5 times 1.5. And if you solve that, you would get 3 and 375 thousandths. Okay, so you could also use as a base a factor. So if I have my base of 1/2 and I want to cube it, notice I've put parentheses around it. The reason is because if you don't put parentheses around it, then the reader is going to think that that 1 is cubed. So like this. If I don't put parentheses around it, they're just going to cube that 1. But I want the whole thing used as a factor 3 times. So that's 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So my answer is 1/8. Okay, if I have an MP3 player that has 16 gigabytes, you may have heard of the word gigabytes. Let me just explain to you. 1 gigabyte has 10 to the 9th power space for bits of information. Okay, so let's write that. Let's write an equivalent expression for 10 to the 9th power using factors. So what that means is that 10 is used as a factor 9 times, or 10 times itself 9 times. So that would be 10 times 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 10. And the cool thing about tens is that when you are writing them, really 10 to the 9th means a 1 followed by 9 zeros. So if you were to multiply this, it would be a 1 followed by 9 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, now I'm going to give you a little assignment. I want you to express each power as the product, and I'm using this terminology so that when you see it on a test, you'll understand what it's saying. Express each power as the product of the same factor. Then determine the value. In other words, then solve it. Okay, so what I'm saying, number 1, if I have 2 to the 3rd power, writing it as a product of the same factor means 2 is my factor 3 times. So that'd be like saying 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So my answer is 8. Okay, so I want you to do number 2, which is 2.1 squared, or used as a factor 2 times. Write it, rewrite it here, and then solve it, and write your answer and circle it. Okay, the third one I want you to do is 1/4 squared. Okay, so write it as a product, as a factor 2 times, solve it, circle your answer. The fourth one I want you to do is 10 to the 5th. So write it using a factor of 10 5 times, and then solve it. Ooh, you're going to need a bigger circle than that. Okay, the last one, and let me adjust the camera for just a minute. Let me write it and then I'll adjust, is 1/7 to the power of 3. So you are going to solve that. You're going to rewrite it, and then you're going to solve it and circle your answer. All right, friends, that's all. Bye-bye.